to Off Limits. Liberal, irreverent, and really, really gay. Welcome everybody to, sorry about that, and welcome everybody to Off Limits. Thanks for joining me. What the hell am I doing here? Let's see here. Here we go. Sorry about that. So thanks for joining me on the show tonight. We're talking tonight about civil disobedience. If you want to know more about Off Limits, you can go to offlimitshow.com. You can email me directly at info@offlimitshow.com. You can also go to iTunes and subscribe to my podcast. You can follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on Facebook. Just look for Off Limits Show on those. And, of course, here on Spreaker, and as well as the website itself, you can listen to the show live streaming there or listen to archived shows as well from the front page. So, and if you're actually listening live, you can always join us in the chat room if you want at Spreaker.com. Spreaker.com is where you go to find my show, Off Limits Show, and you can go in there and chat with me if you want to. And I'll chat back, actually, over the air. So tonight we're talking about civil disobedience, and we're talking about, lately I've been thinking about exactly why we put up with shit in this country that we don't have to put up with. I mean, there's a lot of shit that goes on in this country that, unfortunately, people don't challenge, and simply because it's the law or because it's the way it is, and not, or because it's difficult to challenge. And the reality is, we are in this country, sort of born with rights, inalienable rights in this country. That's what our Constitution says, right? Isn't that our Constitution? And as a result of this, we have to remember that we have a duty as citizens of the United States of America to fight back when our rights are being trampled on. Sorry, I had to take a drink there. So if you are someone who feels your rights are being trampled on, then I urge you to engage in what is called civil disobedience. Now, civil disobedience is essentially what it's defined as is by at least Wikipedia anyway, it says civil disobedience is the active, professed refusal to obey certain laws, demands, and commands of a government or of an occupying international power. Civil disobedience is commonly, though not always, defined as being non-violent resistance. It is one form of civil resistance. In one view, it could be said to be it is compassion in the form of respectful disagreement. So we're not talking about harming people. We're not talking about taking the law into your own hands in the sense that you're going to hurt somebody else or kill someone or force someone to do something. It's more about disagreeing through verbal aggression, verbal aggression instead of physical aggression. And it's, about people who go out and they actually take their rights that they have, whether as an individual, whether it's as a woman, as a gay man or a lesbian or a transgendered individual or whatever it may be, or someone of a different race, and take those rights and ensure that they are treated equally under the law and by society in general, and demand that they have the same rights that everyone else has. Now, it's not a lot to ask if you consider the fact that Americans, as I said, are imbued in some ways with certain rights. Now, we have the right to free speech, we have the right to assemble, we have the right to carry a gun, we have all these different rights that we have because of afforded to us as a result of our Constitution. And so it's important, if you're gonna fight the power or fight the man or whatever you want to call it, that you know what your rights are in this country. And it's important that we as citizens of the United States know what our rights are. Now, the Bill of Rights in this country give us, they have 10 amendments. And in those 10 amendments, I'm going to go over them real quick. We have certain rights that we're afforded. Now, the first one is the freedom of religion. Freedom of religion, speech, press, assembly, and petition. So what does that mean exactly? Freedom of religion, speech, which I have none apparently today. Speech, press, assembly, or petition. What that means is you have the right to religious expression. You have the right from religious persecution, the right from religious zealotry or whatever, or the exemption from having to practice a religion, the ability to freely practice a religion if you choose to. I mean, you have all these rights in terms of religion alone. You have the right of free speech in this First Amendment. You have the right to have political associations that you want without having any kind of consequences. You have the right to impose consequences. The right to not have consequences imposed upon you for holding certain beliefs. And also being part of an organization is not going to cause you trouble or whatever. You have religious expression, like I said before, freedom of speech and press, like I said before, and assembly. So you can get together with your friends, your family, your people who have like minds and thinking the same way you do, whether you're Democrats, Republicans, or gay people or black people or white people or whatever, Ku Klux Klan even, they have the right to assemble and do and say whatever the fuck they want in that assembly without having fear of being persecuted by their by the government. And the Second Amendment gives you the right to bear arms. Now, this has been a hot point of constitution. A hot point of contention. Lately, because in the past few years specifically, because everybody's afraid Obama's going to take my gun. Oh my God, Obama's going to take my guns. What am I going to do without my guns? Obama's not taking your fucking guns, and he's not First of all, let's talk about this. Let me get down the list, and I'll talk about everything. So, the right to bear arms is one of the rights that you have. But specifically what it says is a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And so, there's a lot of discussion. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. And then we have the Third Amendment, which is quartering troops. And so basically that's stating that you have the right to not have to quarter troops or whatever if it's a time of war or whatever. It says, no soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. The Fourth Amendment, search and seizure, which, is one people know quite well usually. Search and seizure, the Fourth Amendment says, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So people can't just come into your fucking house and take what the fuck they want without actually having due process of law. Then we have the Fifth Amendment, which is grand jury, double jeopardy, self-incrimination, due process. So when it comes to double jeopardy, that's obviously when you're talking about if you have been accused of murder or something like that, you can't be tried twice for the same crime or whatever if you've been found innocent. And then we have, what else do we have? Hold on. and self-incrimination, you have the right to the Fifth Amendment. I plead the Fifth. That's what it comes from, the Fifth Amendment. Self-incrimination. You have the right to not say a word when you're arrested, or not to say a word at all if you want to. And you have the right to due process, meaning quick and expedient trial, which these days is not really much, because these days they don't really do that anymore. Oh, hey, David. How are you? David from the 5x5 is in the chat room right now, waving and saying hello. Hi, David. So that's the Fifth Amendment. Then we have 5 more amendments. The Sixth Amendment, criminal prosecutions, jury trial, right to confront, and counsel. So you have the right to have, an attorney appointed to you if you don't can afford one, blah, blah, blah. You have the right to confront, to speak up for yourself in court, and you have the right to a jury trial if you so wish. Same with the Seventh Amendment. It's pretty much the same. And then the Eighth Amendment, you are free from excess bail or fines, cruel or unusual punishment. Ninth Amendment, the Ninth Amendment is about what is called unenumerated rights. So the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So this was basically about the fundamental rights basically people have in not having them removed as a result of the government or whatever. And then you have the 10th Amendment, which is the rights reserved to states or people. So basically the states have rights as well. So these are the amendments, and we have in this country, and under these amendments we have freedoms granted to us as Americans, obviously, and that's great, that's wonderful, that's terrific. However, are these enough to essentially cover everything we as human beings need to have our freedoms? And what are the freedoms that are afforded to us that are not included in the Constitution of the United States? What are the rights that we have that are really human rights, and rights that are considered to be something that people might not otherwise consider in a document, because it's not something at the time it was drafted, and therefore that's why we have amendments, civil rights amendments, blah, blah, blah. I didn't read all that stuff, but about all that crap too. So we have all that as well, and that's great. But when you are, for example, and you have, under the amendments of the law, let's look at the amendments real quick. Hold on. Because they're important. I want to go over this real quick too, so people understand what their rights are, obviously. So you have, let me find the list here. Hold on. I know some of them, obviously don't know all of them. Here we are. So there's 27 amendments to the Constitution, and the First Amendment, five freedoms it affords us: speech, press, religion, assembly, petition. We read all this already. So then we go down to which one did we stop on? The 10th, I think? Yeah. So the 11th Amendment, when the states sue other states, basically it automatically goes before the Supreme Court. Residents of one state cannot sue another state. Another country cannot sue the U.S. and vice versa. The 12th Amendment, create a ticket for the presidency where the president and the VP are elected together. Old news. 13th Amendment, very important, abolishes slavery and gives Congress the power to enforce abolition through legislation. The 14th Amendment defines citizens as people born in the United States and prohibits the states from denying due process and equal protection under the law. Also states that the value of the debt must also be paid and honored and cannot be questioned. And it also excludes women from voting. The 15th Amendment, voting rights will not be based on race. The 16th Amendment establishes an income tax. The 17th Amendment, direct election of senators instead of the states electing them, or constituents, whatever. And then the 18th Amendment, prohibition. 19th Amendment, women's suffrage, rights to vote, whatever. 20th Amendment shortens the lame duck period by moving the presidential inauguration from March to January. Almost done. 21st Amendment ends prohibition by repealing the 18th Amendment. 22nd Amendment limits the president to 2 terms in office. 23rd Amendment, Washington, D.C. is not a state, but gets 3 electoral votes. 24th Amendment outlaws poll taxes. 25th Amendment outlines the direct line of succession for presidency. 26th Amendment lowers the voting age to 18th. And the final one, 27th Amendment, is Congress can't give itself a pay raise. So, hey, Goofy Bone, thanks for joining. What's going on? HTLA Radio 1 as well. And David, thank you for listening. And what was I saying? I forgot. Oh, so these are our amendments. These are our rights. These are the things we have. So, for example, let's say you are someone who is who finds the right to vote, if you're a woman, for example, and you have the right to vote in this country, and you have it because of the 19th Amendment, or excuse me, the 19th Amendment. Because of this amendment, you can vote because you're a woman, right? Okay, so let's say you are going down to vote one day, and the voting registration place says that you can't vote because you don't have an ID, okay? Now, does it say anywhere in the Constitution that you have to have an ID to vote? Does it say that? Now, there are certain states that actually require you to have an ID to vote these days, and they passed amendments in those states. Now, the Constitution also says that we have states' rights. So states' rights, do states' rights outweigh federal rights, or do federal rights outweigh states' rights? So the question becomes, who the fuck do you listen to? And so if you have something as simple as your fucking right to vote challenged by someone because you don't have an identification, then you need to instill civil disobedience. If you have your rights as a human being being questioned as well, that's another time to do it as well. And let me talk about that for a second. What's the difference between a civil right or a constitutional right and a human right? I've talked to someone the other day in chat room. I think it was Goofy Bones chat room, actually. I was talking to Mekazawa, I think, about healthcare. And he was saying that healthcare is not a right to people, and blah, blah, blah. And I disagree with that. I think that healthcare is a human right. I think that the right to water is a human right. I think that the right to breathe fucking air is a human right. The fact that you're here means that you have the right to have air and water and have these things, okay? Yet there are companies that try to privatize water, that try to privatize healthcare, and try to privatize things so that they can make a profit off of them, even though these things should be considered actual human rights. Now, as a human right, as I see it anyway, and many people see it, is it okay for healthcare to be in the hands of a private organization as opposed to one that's for the people? Now, people, lately we've been talking a lot about Obamacare and how horrible that whole launch has been, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of people saying Obamacare obviously is a failure. It doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's not true. Why is it not true? Because Obamacare hasn't happened yet. All that's happened is the signing up for Obamacare. That's it. Now, they had a lot fewer people than they need in order to pay for Obamacare sign up in this initial run. And as a result of that, people are saying it's going to be a failure because it can't be paid for. Because the way it works is people who are younger are paying higher premiums than they normally would, so that people who are older or sick or whatever can have health care, and it brings everybody's prices to a kind of a middle ground. So people who are paying less before may be paying more now. People who are paying more before may be paying less now. And so you need a pool of at least, I think, 500,000 people to really make this work. And a lot of those people have to be younger people. And so the reason they're saying it's not going to work is because we don't have enough people signed up. And that's true. We had 25,000 people or something like that signed up for it as of the other day. And from just the website, the rest of the 100,000 or so people came from specific states. And so does that mean it's a failure? No. What it means is that they couldn't get on the fucking website to sign up. And all the fucking Republicans, all the people out there who are actually trying so fucking hard to block Obamacare, like John Boehner and people like that who just hate Obama so much and hate the healthcare plan and everything else, even though initially it was their idea, they have been trying so hard to make people not vote for this and not support it that the word in certain states, including Texas where I live, never got out that you could sign up for this, you could do this, you can do that, blah, blah, blah. This is why it works. This is why your healthcare will be less expensive, etc. The word didn't get out in a lot of states because, especially red states, because of that. It got out in California. That's why California did so well, generally speaking, at least in relation to the other states like Texas or the Deep South or places where a lot of Hicks live. So anyway, so people who don't want this healthcare plan have tried everything they can to block it from happening. And people are surprised that fewer people signed up than they expected. That on top of the whole blunder of the fucking website. Now that, I've got to say, was a fucking blunder if I ever heard of one. Can you fucking believe that the fucking United States government, now this is, I have to admit to this, the federal government can't run a fucking website and can't fucking set it up. why the fuck would we think that they can run a fucking healthcare plan as complicated as the one that has set out to be enacted January 1st? I understand the questions that people have about it because I agree with that. However, just because the government is completely stupid about running certain programs, as they are in many things, doesn't mean that the healthcare people are going to have doesn't trump the fact that these people don't know how to run it in the first place. Meaning that, yes, it may be a disaster administratively speaking, and it may be a disaster even in the future in how it's run in terms of how people, get healthcare or whatever. But overall, ultimately, the people who do not have healthcare these days now will now have healthcare as a result of this Affordable Care Act. That is what makes it worth everything, whether they run it well or not. And, there's plenty of programs like Medicare, Medicare, Medicaid, I don't know, food stamps, whatever kind of governmental assistance type programs that there are, as well as Social Security, for God's sakes, that are run by the government, that are run just fine. And people are fine with them for the most part. Yeah, they've got their issues, but they're run okay. People get their money, people get what they need. So to say that they can't run Obamacare ultimately just because they're having growing pains initially is unfair and just more bullshit. So if you believe that and you feel like it's wrong, then don't have it. Apocalypse says, what's wrong with having an ID to vote, though? Otherwise, everyone could just keep voting endlessly. At least it would be fair, in my opinion, one vote per person. Well, that's not the reason that they have ID, is to prevent people from voting too much. But anyway, they did say that was one of the possible reasons for it. They did say, however, that they have, I think it was like 1% or something of all votes of every election that they have. People have tried that kind of shit, and they try to revote, whatever, over and over and over again. And it's not an issue that we have. And the people who would do that, it's such a minute number of people that it wouldn't make a difference in an election unless it comes down to one vote or something. And that rarely, I don't think it's ever happened, but maybe it has. So I think the problem having an ID to vote is this: it creates other issues because of Jim Crow laws in the South. They had to prevent blacks from voting in the South in the the 60s and 50s and before, whatever. They had laws intentionally set out to prevent them from voting. They had what were called poll taxes or poll tests and things like that, and people had to be able to prove they could read and they could do this and that other people didn't have to prove they had to do. Okay, and so and one of the things that is known is that a disproportionate amount of people who are black or Hispanic do not have IDs, and elderly people as well do not have the IDs because either they don't have a car, they can afford a car, or they don't vote. They don't drive. Have a car, so they can't drive. And oftentimes elderly people don't as well for those same reasons. And so it unfortunately disenfranchises those people from voting to some degree and makes it much more difficult for them to have to do the same thing, to do something different for them, that someone else would do normally in order to vote. So, like, for example, an elderly person who lives at home by themselves or whatever, or with a loved one or whatever, and can't get around, whatever, doesn't have a car, and no longer has an ID because they can't see to drive anymore. They don't need an ID. They don't need it for checks. They don't need it for anything. So they don't need it. So they don't have one. They don't have a driver's license specifically, generally speaking. And so those people have to actually go out and go get a test, a driver's ed test, or they can take an ID test, not an ID test. Get an ID, from the DPS or whatever. And they have to pay for the additional expense, et cetera, that they normally wouldn't have. And so in some ways it disenfranchises these people from voting for that reason. But anyway, so all of this talking about Obamacare and everything else, if you don't like Obamacare and if you don't believe in Obamacare, then don't, So I'm sorry, it's law. It's going to happen. Today, though, however, they voted today to, and this is a travesty, I should say, because what happened today is because Obama admitted that, the launch was horrible, which it was, in order to have people in order for him to keep his word, which he said was everybody who wants to keep their health care can keep their health care, the Democrats voted and allowed it was called Keeping Your Health Care Act or some shit like that. And so that meant that people who have a health care plan they already like, they can keep now. The thing is that's going to create issues now for healthcare programs because they have to revamp their whole plans layout and the cost and everything else as a result, and those plans may not or may not be available anymore anyway. So he did that in order to say mea culpa, but the point is the people are stupid, because if you lost your healthcare plan, because let's say anybody who lost their healthcare plan, they wanted to keep their healthcare plan, right? Okay, you lost your healthcare plan because you said you had the same healthcare plan for 5 years, whatever. Oh, I want to keep my healthcare plan. It's been the same one I've had forever, and I can't get rid of my healthcare plan because it's been good. I hate that Obama. Okay, so you're one of those people. Great. You had the same healthcare plan forever. You love it. Great. So then that means that you will go back to a healthcare plan that no longer allows for pre-existing conditions, which means that you can, if you ever end that healthcare plan, you will never have it again, because you can no longer be, if you have a pre-existing condition, accepted to it. Number two, if you have that same healthcare plan that you want to keep because you hate Obamacare so much, or because it costs more to not have it, then you now also will no longer be able to have no lifetime limits. And what does that mean for you? Well, if you have an old healthcare plan, that means all those rules apply before the Obamacare Act came into play. So that means like you get cancer, or you get, I don't know, some disease or something, and let's say it's cancer, and you have the choice between radiation or chemotherapy, even though the doctors say you should have both, which often happens in advanced cancers. You have to choose between chemotherapy and radiation. And the reason you have to choose is because your healthcare plan maxes out at $1 million lifetime limit. And so you got to keep your old healthcare plan, but now you're fucked because you didn't switch over to the new healthcare plan, which would have prevented from that from happening in the first place, even if you had to pay more money. So regardless of whatever healthcare plan people had before, it's stupid. And this is what Obama was trying to say to people who are obviously too stupid to realize it, that the plan they had before is not as good in many ways as the one they're going to have in the future, even if they have to pay more money. So the fuck what? Come on, people. Come on. Let's go back and see what people were saying in the chat room, because I haven't been watching, so I'm sure people have something to say. Okay, Uncle Ghoulie says, state ID is only $10 and in Michigan, I think that's Michigan, and super easy to get. Common sense. Otherwise, illegals could vote and people could vote multiple times. Well, multiple, like I said earlier, it's been proven by many polls, but by independent polls, that multiple voting is not an issue in this country. People do it on such a small scale, it never impacts the election. So that's not an issue. Illegals voting, well, sorry, might happen. Oh, well. And then Icon, what about gay men in a relationship and is, okay, Moxie says, Icon, what about a gay man in a relationship and is, say, 70? His new healthcare plan includes maternity. So what if it includes maternity? Are you saying that it's something he doesn't need? Is that what you're saying? He's paying for something he doesn't need? Is that what you mean, Moxie? No, I haven't gotten the civil disobedience yet, Uncle Ghoulie. Just shut the fuck up and wait, and just keep your whole pants on. I'll get there in a minute. The maternity care is required for everyone. Yes, it is required for everyone. But you know what else is required for everyone, Moxie? Me paying taxes for kids to go to school at my local elementary school that I don't have. So yes, you are paying for something that you necessarily don't need, but you're paying into the system, which helps everybody as a whole. We're talking about helping humanity. We're talking about helping society. And I know a lot of conservatives are not concerned with that. Most conservatives are not concerned with what's good for everybody. They're only concerned about what's good for them. And so they're concerned about, oh, I'm paying too much for this, or I'm paying too much for that, or I'm paying for someone else's way. Well, all of us are doing that already with public school systems, taxes. If you own a house like I do and you pay your taxes into the system, you're paying for it whether you have a kid or not. So it's really no different to me in that situation. Apocalypse says, there is a religious exclusion people don't know about, so I could sign up for a super cheap healthcare plan and say the Lutheran Church for $70. Okay, well, tell me about that, Apocalypse. There's a religious exclusion for people. There's a religious exclusion for the ENDA, which is the act to end discrimination against people based on their sexual orientation and employment. But I don't know of one for Obamacare. Maybe you could educate me because I'm not sure about that, but tell me about it. So I'm not sure what you're talking about that. Anyway, so getting back to what I was trying to get to here, as I was so elegantly pointed out by Uncle Gooley, the thing I have to say is this. Look, all of these things, I got off on a tangent about Obamacare because I really wanted to talk about that as well. But the thing about all of this is look, people are imbued, as I said at the beginning of the show, I talked about all of our civil rights that we have, our liberties, our freedoms in this country as a result of being American, afforded to us by the Constitution, Bill of Rights, etc., blah, 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 okay? So as a result of all these things, we have these rights. Now, let's say people don't like Obamacare, and which I'm all for Obamacare, and if, say, someone like in the chat doesn't like Obamacare, people listening to the show don't like it, fine. Then you go out and fucking protest the fuckers. Say, Obama, you suck, and say whatever. Go the fuck out and do something about it. What civil disobedience is, in my opinion. Oh, by the way, if you want to call in, let me give you the number. Hold on. It's the call-in number is 214-377-0481, or you can call using Skype for free by calling Off Limits Show, and you can call in that way if you like. Oh, what I was going to say is people often complain out their ass about stuff, but never do shit about it. If you actually want to do something about something, you have to actually make a fucking stink about it. You can't just sit in your fucking sofa yelling at the TV and not do shit about it. You actually have to do something, right? So let's say you are pissed off about Obamacare. What are you doing about it? Let's say you're pissed off about gay rights, people not having equal rights under the law for gay people. Do something about it. Whatever the fuck it is you're pissed off about, then do something about it. Don't just sit there and shut the fuck up. Actually make a fucking stink about it. I remember the 60s. I don't remember the 60s, but I know of the 60s. If you actually wanted something done, you got out there and you actually protested. You protested the fucking White House. You protested the City Hall. You protested everything in person. You took time out of your life to try to make a fucking difference. And if there was a law that was not actually right, what I mean by right is that it somehow separated people or somehow made one set of people more than the other set or whatever. Somehow it was obviously wrong because of humanity, human rights in that sense. People knew it was wrong in their bones. People fought against it and then refused to enforce it. And that's like, for example, the freedom riders and the civil rights movement who went and sat in the Woolworth counter when they knew they were going to be accosted and assaulted and spit on everything else, shit thrown at them in their faces. Because even though it was the law, they did it anyway because they knew it was wrong. And not just black people, white people went with them as well because they knew what was happening to this set of people was wrong. The same thing for gay people. Gay people have people who are allies, who are straights, who are whatever, who actually are on the side of the gay rights movement, who are there as well because they know it's wrong. And they break laws all the time in terms of people who are different color or race or whatever in order to actually prove a point, and because they know it's wrong. So if you're gonna be pissed about something, then do something about it. Sorry, I need like a filter for this. It's like poop, poop, poop. Can you hear the poop, poop? Sorry. So if you're fucking pissed about something, do something about it. Stop fucking complaining about it. One of the things that drives me fucking nuts about people, whether it's in my personal life or whether it is in politics or whatever you're talking about, is someone who actually is pissed off about something and all they do is talk about it, complain, yeah, Obama this, Obama that, or my mother, or my father, my husband, my wife, my son, and all they do is fucking talk about it and they never do shit about it. People who just talk, but never do shit about it drives me fucking crazy. And I don't think if you are someone who has a political issue that you're pissed off about and all you do is come on the shows like mine or other people's shows on here or online or whatever, and you never do anything else and actually, as an activist, go out and actually do something about it, you have no fucking right to complain about it. If you don't donate money to causes you believe in or something, either you give of your time or give of your wallet, make a difference that way, then shut the fuck up because you don't have anything to fucking be talking about in the first place. You're not doing shit. You know what I mean? Let me go back and see what you were saying in the chat now. Ooh. Not signing up for Obamacare is a legitimate protest against Obamacare. After the extension is over, you could be arrested. Okay, are you saying you could be arrested? Oh, yeah. You're saying you could be arrested for not having Obamacare? That's not true. Is it? Tell me what you mean by that. You can be fined, but I don't think arrested is part of it. I'm sure that's not true. Uncle Ghoulie, so be it then. Have you seen how much it costs? Yes, I have seen how much it costs because I signed up for it. So I do know how much it costs. I'm self-employed. And as a self-employed person, I can only get insurance through Obamacare or through like the big whatever chains or whatever. And after December 31st, everything is going to be worked through Obamacare. I mean, if you go through the insurance companies, it still goes through the exchange, whether you get it, you want Obamacare or not. So it all works the same way because the plans they're offering are the same thing because they have to offer them. So it doesn't matter if you like Obamacare, you don't like Obamacare. If you want insurance, you're going to be with Obamacare, like it or not, paying into it eventually. Let's see, arrested. I figured SRS, paychecks. There's tons of processing going on. It's more than people's rent in this country. Bullshit. Okay, listen. I have not just anecdotes, but there's many people that some people have their insurance go up. And that's based on their income levels. If you make under $40,000 a year, you get a subsidy. I don't get one because I don't make that little. But if you make under that much money, then you get a subsidy to help you pay for your fucking insurance. So instead of it being $300 a month, it's $150 a month or $50 a month. And some people, it's like $20 a month if you make like nothing. So as long as you're paying something into the tax system. So it's not true that people have to pay so much money they can't afford it. If you are being charged, I don't know, $500 a month for your insurance, which, means it's probably the platinum plan. They have the platinum plan. They had the silver plan. They had the bronze plan, gold plan, then bronze plan. They had 4 plans available. And the platinum plan was the most expensive, and it paid for almost everything, almost 100% of your cost. And then you had the next one down, which was like gold, I think, and that was like 80%. The next one was 70%. The next one was like 60%. So depending on what you want for your out-of-pocket costs, depends upon whether you actually would, pay into it or not. If you want to pay for it, so you get to choose how much you pay to some degree. The lowest plan that I saw when I was signing up for it was like $90-something a month. Okay, and then the highest plan was like almost $500 a month. So for me personally, and it depends on your health and your age and blah blah blah, of course. So for me, those were the ranges, and I ended up settling for a plan that was about $360 a month, which includes dental care. And includes many other things that my previous plan, which I had with United Healthcare, did not include or have. And I was paying before. I'm paying more. I was paying before. I was paying $260 a month, and now I'm paying $360 a month. So I'm paying $100 more a month for my healthcare. Am I pissed off about it? No, I'm not pissed at all. You know why I'm not pissed at all? Because I know that when I look at what I got before on my disclosures on my old insurance plan, based compared to what I get now on my new plan, that I'm getting much more than I was before. So I'm happy to pay it. And I could have gotten a plan that was similar to my old plan and paid less money. I just wanted a better plan. So I got better plan for more money. I think that's fair. Let me keep going down here. The IRS can arrest you. They carry weapons. It's civil disobedience. Yes, it's illegal. Yeah, no, I have not read the bill. Are you fucking kidding, Uncle Ghoulie? Have I read the whole fucking bill? Do you know how fucking big the whole bill is? Have you read the whole bill? I've read parts of it, but I haven't read the whole fucking thing. So I'm not claiming to be some expert on it here. If you don't pay the fine, that's not true. If you don't pay the fine, you're not going to be arrested. I don't believe that. I have to look it up, but I'm going to have to read that. Longer than the Bible. Thank you. Exactly. Moxie says the fine is cheaper than one monthly payment for people. That's my civil disobedience for 2014. But I shouldn't be required to pay for something I don't need. If I get health care already, then screw it. I have to agree that, look, that there is that part of it that actually makes you pay for something. Okay, I agree that you shouldn't be required to have health care. I agree with that. That's the only part of the Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act that I disagree with personally. I don't think that it's right for government to make you pay for something, but I also don't think it's right for the government to make you pay for car insurance. Now, if you don't have car insurance and you get in an accident, then you're kind of fucked if you have full coverage. If you don't have full coverage, I mean. And so it's the same thing with healthcare. If you choose not to have health insurance and you get sick or you die or get a catastrophic disease or something, then you're fucked. So, but I do think it's the individual's right to decide whether they want to take that risk or not. So whether you want to take that risk with your car and not have insurance and get in an accident possibly, or whether you want to get into having some horrible disease and dying as a result of not having insurance, those are risks that you as an individual, in my opinion, have to decide for yourself whether you want to take. However, when it comes to healthcare in this country, you're right. You have to have it now according to Obamacare. I understand why that was put into law. I understand why he did that or they did that because they want to help the healthcare situation we have here in the country. Because as a result of that, we're going to have fewer people in the ERs, et cetera, and relying on those as a result of healthcare. I understand that that's why it happened, but I do agree with you that it should not have been part of it. Moxie says the cheapest plan for me was far more than the fine, and the deductible was more than what the monthly plan would be over a year. So double the yearly cost plus deductible or the fine. The affordable healthcare bill is longer than Ron Jeremy's took. I know. That's why I haven't read it. I mean, he asked if I read it. I'm like, no, I haven't fucking read the whole goddamn thing. Are you kidding me? So anyway, that's what I want to talk about that because, but yeah. So I mean, if you don't want healthcare, I'm sorry that you're gonna have to have it, but you're gonna be better off in the end. I mean, I do agree with you though that it's not right that we should be forced to have healthcare. But I don't think there's any other way for them to actually make it work if it ends up working at all. And look, I'm certainly not confident that this is going to end up the way I want it to, that we're going to end up having, the only good thing that has happened is the pre-existing condition thing. No, it's also the lifetime limits thing, and also including mental health care, and also including maternity stuff that you have to pay for even if you don't need it. And all these, there's many other parts of the plan that are great that other plans are charging you for far more for, or refuse to take you on for. Now, I'll tell you something personal real quick. I went to see, I was doing P90X about 2 years ago. About 3 years ago, I guess. I was doing P90X about 3 years ago, and I just started, and actually, no, it's not true. I've been doing it for about 3 months, and I was working out all the time and whatever. And so one day I was doing P90X, and I all of a sudden got extremely dizzy, and the room was spinning, and my head, my eyes, they turned black, like I lost my sight for a second. My hearing went away, and I almost fainted, okay? And my heart, I had a heart rate monitor on my wrist because I always wear one when I'm working out. And my heart rate was at 199 beats a minute. That's very fast, especially for me. So that was very, very fast, very high. And so I was really, really wiped out from it. So I lied down on the sofa and I was just like wiped out for the next 4 hours. I just couldn't hardly move or anything. So I didn't know if I had a stroke or what the fuck had happened. So I went to a cardiologist the following week to get myself checked out. And I was a little weak or whatever. And I didn't know what the fuck was wrong and why that had happened. It never happened before when I was working out ever. And so I went to the cardiologist and he checked me out. And he did an EKG and an echocardiogram and he checked my heart and a stress test, blah, blah, blah. And he said, that I was fine, but he said it could possibly have been what's called exercise-induced tachycardia, meaning some people, if they work out too hard, can get, as a result of working out too hard, their heart rate can go really, really fast like mine did, and it can cause me to almost faint or something or pass out. And so I said, well, is it something I could worry about? He's like, no. He said, it's just watch it when you're working out. Don't work out so hard, blah, blah, blah. That was it, okay? Okay, so then when I was applying for insurance through the regular insurance exchange or whatever you want to call it, the normal insurance plan people before Obamacare started or whatever, I actually applied and was denied. Why was I denied? Because it said in my chart, according to the insurance plan from him, that I had tachycardia, that I had exercise-induced tachycardia. I was like, I do not have exercise-induced tachycardia. I mean, I don't have tachycardia. It's just a tachycardia, meaning tachycardia would mean it happened all the time for no reason, blah, blah, blah. And so I had to prove to them, I don't have it, blah, blah, blah. And he spoke to them and said, I don't have it. They said, well, it's already in his chart, so we're not going to take it out. Therefore, they denied me because of that, citing a pre-existing condition. Now, I've never had any issues since then, that one particular moment in time, and I don't have a problem with my heart. But because of what the doctor put as a possibility, meaning of the explanation of what had happened to me in my chart, and even though he told them himself that I was fine and there was no problem with my heart, blah, 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 and they checked me out and showed them the charts and everything else, this fucking insurance companies, I applied with 4, all of them denied me for that reason. Now, insurance companies will take any fucking chance they can to deny your ass because they don't want to fucking pay anything. They don't want any risk. It's all about risk with insurance companies. And so there was no difference with them as with anything else. And so so as a result of that, I applied for what was called pre-existing health care. It's called PCIP insurance. You can look it up, pcip.gov or something like that. And it was a momentary 1-year plan that's essentially Obamacare before Obamacare came out. That was sponsored by the government, but you still paid for it every month. So I was paying, like I said, $260 a month. The result of that, and it only worked for people who had pre-existing conditions according to their charts or whatever. So as a result of that, and now Obamacare, I am someone who will have health insurance again. If I didn't have those things, if it weren't for those policies, I would be going around without fucking health care because of some stupid mistake by a fucking doctor who said something the wrong way or whatever in my chart. And because the fucking insurance companies are fucking assholes and care only about money and risk. That's what they're about. They're a fucking business. And my point was that people should not be a business. Human beings should never be a business. And healthcare, whether it's insurance or whether it's the healthcare system, is a business. And that's all it is. That's all it's ever been. And it's all it's ever going to be about for most people. Think doctors, people who become doctors, do they become doctors because they want to help people? Or do they become doctors because they want to make $400,000 a year or $500,000 a year, or surgeons or whatever? Most people who become doctors, not all, but I'd say at least half of them become doctors for the wrong reason. Nurses as well, and people like that. But they get into it because it's an easy job. Not easy. I shouldn't say that. It's not easy at all. Let me take that back. It's not easy at all to be a nurse. But I'm saying that it's something you can do without necessarily having a degree, like a high-end degree or whatever, if you want to be just a regular RN or something. Anyway, so my point is like, it does help people, and I'm an example of it. And if it weren't for this, I would be fucking out of luck because I'm self-employed. If I worked for an employer, it'd be a different story. But I've been self-employed for 13 years, and I'm not going to change that. So that's why I'm for Obamacare. Now, I'm talking about civil disobedience. Sorry, I keep getting off topic, but this is how I am. I go from one thing to the next. I should have called this brain purge. Anyway, so I went talking about civil disobedience. There is right now in Russia a huge issue, as you know, and I've talked about it on my show before many times, with gay rights. And Putin, who's the prime minister or whatever the fuck he's called there, I think it's prime minister, he has essentially said, fuck the queers, fuck the gays. He doesn't give a shit about them, and if they don't like it here, leave or whatever, basically is what he said. He didn't say that, but that's essentially his attitude towards them. And there have been many murders and gay bashings as well of gays in Russia as a result of his position on it, and the police are hardly doing anything about it at all. And so what do you do if you are living in a country like that where your country is against you? Your country doesn't give a shit about you, doesn't care who you are, doesn't see you as a person or a human being, but sees you as a fucking nuisance. What do you do when you're in that kind of situation? Well, what do? You fucking disobey, and you actually go the fuck out there and you protest. Now, it's easy for me, someone as an American, to say this kind of stuff because I'm an American and I know I go out there and protest. I'm not going to be arrested or killed or murdered as a result of it, generally speaking. But you go in a country like Russia or a country like Uganda or Malta or other countries out there right now who are having the same types of issues, you could be killed or murdered as a result of it. But the only way these things are going to change is if you protest. If you sit idly by and you allow people to say shit about you and do things to you and you never respond to those things, then you're just going to be a fucking doormat. So you've got to respond to that. Also, there was a minister, some fucking stupid minister said recently that about a picture, there was this gay couple holding this baby that they had just adopted. And this minister said this. He said, one of the men almost has his tongue hanging out like he's licking his chops, like this baby is ours now. And that's fine. You may call that love, but it looks to me like a little bit of lust. So we've got this fucking minister now who's saying that this happy couple is lusting after this baby and what they're going to do to him or her when he or she gets older because they're pedophiles, because all gay people are fucking pedophiles, you know? So do gay people sit back, and do you sit back and allow this to happen? No, you fight back and you go. It fucking pisses me off, people like this, because for me, I would go up to this person and say, you know, fuck you, motherfucker, whatever. That's how I kind of respond to things. But the way to do it is to, you know, fight back. And when it comes to the rights of women, when it comes to rights of minorities, when it comes to rights of anybody who's oppressed person or persons in this country, you have to fight back. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people today that consider this country to be free from oppression and free from those things. Now, all these people, almost all of these people, I would say 99.9% of these people are white, heterosexual, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant males or females. They're not Black, Hispanic, Asian, gay, lesbian, transgender. They're people who don't know from, as I say sometimes, know from oppression. They're not people who understand it. They're people who understand it conceptually in the abstract, but they're not people who know what it means to be oppressed, generally speaking. Now, women obviously have been oppressed, and they still are to some small degree. But on the scale of oppression, they're far, far, far down there, far under the races I mentioned and the sexual orientations I mentioned. So you have to remember that these people, there are people out there who think that it's wrong when you fight back. It's wrong when you say, fuck that, I'm going to do this because it's the right thing for my people, whether it's your race or your gay people, brethren, whatever. So the people that you're fighting for are your brothers and sisters, your family members, whatever, and yourself. And in order to actually make a change in this world, you've got to fucking fight back. And if you don't, then nothing's going to fucking change. So that's what I have to say about that. Last thing I want to say, oh wait, hold on, I got some more things in here. Moxie, the only good thing, sounds like America. Anyway, so last thing I want to say is, I got this email today. I applied for this in September or October. And it was early October or late September. I applied for this online, and they're having a 50th memorial thing honoring the memory of President John F. Kennedy here in Dallas. And it is actually going to take place at Dealey Plaza, where he was murdered or assassinated, as they say, because he was president. And it's going to happen next Friday on the anniversary of his death in the morning. So, so in order to get to the event, it's a limited amount of people that are going to be allowed to be there. You had to go online and request tickets, and if you were selected, and they also had to get a background check and security check and blah, 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 that kind of crap. And if you were selected, then they would send you a ticket in the email to get a barcode for yourself, and then you would take that up to the event, and they give you this wristband to get in or whatever. Anyway, so I got that today, and I was like, oh my God. I know it's like a big deal or whatever, but it's a big deal to me because there's supposed to be Obama's supposed to be there, President Clinton's supposed to be there, my stupid cousin Laura Bush is supposed to be there, and her stupid dumbass husband's supposed to be there, and all these people are going to be there that I don't like. But I love Obama, I love the Clintons, of course, but I think that it's awesome to be there, to be part of this memorial, to commemorate something here in Dallas that happened that everybody in the world knows about, or at least in America. And they've redone Dealey Plaza, and they've redone a lot. But, you know, I was listening to Goofy Bones' show earlier tonight, and he was talking about conspiracy theories. At least when I came in there, I think it was his show. I think when I came in there, they were talking about conspiracy theories about what had happened to JFK, and I subscribe to some of those. I believe in some of those, but I don't think that it fucking matters anymore, because I mean it was so fucking long ago. It's 50 years ago next Friday. But I do think that it is important to remember, and that's why I call it the Civil Disobedience Show, is because it's important to remember that you can't trust the government. You can't trust the fucking government. The government is not going to fucking take care of you. I mean, it takes care of some people, you know, to some degree, obviously. But I don't mean financially. I mean, when it comes to your rights, if it were between you and the government's going to probably win unless you fight back. So when it comes to the government, you cannot trust them. You have to take things into your own hands sometimes. And sometimes you have to say, no, it's not okay what you're doing to me or my people. It's not okay what you're doing to women or to men or to gay men or lesbians or blacks or whites or Hispanics or whatever the case may be. It's not okay. And I stand up for the right for anybody to do this and to civilly disobey, and meaning that not with violence, but simply with words, with action, with legislation, with those things. If you disagree with something, then fucking fight back, but don't just fucking sit in your goddamn ass and expect things to change. People in chat rooms all the time are talking about how much they hate Obama, or they hate America, or they hate, I don't know, blacks or Mexicans or gays or whatever the case is. And fine, if you hate people so much, then go try to get the laws changed. But you're not going to be an uphill battle on that, obviously, because why? Because it's not the right thing to do. It's against human rights and human civility. Just be a fucking nice person and stop being so fucking obsessed with people who are different than you, and stop being so fucking obsessed with something that you can't change. You know, if you still have these kind of antiquated beliefs, you just need to die off, because we don't need you here anyway. So thanks a lot for listening to the show. I'll be back next time and talk to you later. Have a good night.